I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Eric Hollerbach. Be sure and check out my films. Doors of Perception is on Amazon Prime. Occult Louisiana is on Tubi, Roku, Apple, and many more. Booking guests for January. If you have suggestions or maybe you'd like to be a guest, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome Eric Hollerbach. He is a comedian, screenwriter, podcaster, and author. Eric, welcome. How you doing?
Hey, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. What a beautiful intro you've produced.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. Looking forward to this. In my perspective, what you do, blending conspiracy and comedy, is essential right now. Unfortunately, much of conspiracy culture seems to have become a parody of itself. The state of entertainment is in an odd period of collapse and rebirth. It's gone from the traditional Hollywood gatekeeping to what appears to be a slow death of that old system, giving way to more independent artists and creators. It's an exciting time, but I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your journey through the murky entertainment waters. You also have a book out, Girls and the Demons Deal, which is kind of a memoir based on some wild experiences. We'll get into that a bit, but this is your first time on. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and let the audience know how they can find out more.
Well, I have a really good website, which is just my name, erichollerbach.com. There I posted my stand-up specials for free, all my podcast appearances I've done. I have a lot of web series. I have a lot of free work on there. But if you'd like to go over there and buy my book, I'd really appreciate it. That's what I'm here to talk about today. But yeah, I've had a very long comedy journey. You know, when I was 16, I started going to New York City. I'm from New Jersey, and a lot of the places would let you perform 5 minutes if you brought like 4 people. So I would like fill up my mom's minivan with my friends from high school and drive over, and maybe like 12 times I performed at the Comedy Cellar back in like 2002 and 3 at their open mic. Then I took a comedy class at Gotham Comedy Club taught by Dan Vitale, who was a SNL alumni who did one season in 1985 until he snorted every one of his paychecks and kind of fell out. But he was a really good teacher and a really honest guy. And then I saw my first show at the Upright Citizens Brigade around 2003. And then I went to Temple University my freshman year in Philadelphia, and I would take the Chinatown bus once a week to take classes at the Upright Citizens Brigade, because I was a big, like, look at me kind of dumb. And that was what I was, even during my, my 14th, 15th birthday, I would play Whose Line Is It Anyway in my basement and put on shows for my friends. So I was always like really adept at comedy from a young age. It was like, and I thought that there was going to be some kind of like meritocratic ladder to climb. Like, oh, I could be a electrician plumber, or I could be, a comedian. And it is a den of vipers. It is a dystopian hellscape. Anyway, and I've had a lot of friends die from substance abuse, from suicide. My friend Nick Roche, my friend John Rowe. We're all dropping like flies, thinking that, it's actually a career. It's more of like opportunities that you can make for yourself. And if your house forecloses, like, go fuck your mother, like, it's not a real thing. So I know you produced a movie, Occult Louisiana, that I saw.
Great.
And I bought it for just the price of a cup of coffee and enjoyed that.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's not the same. I also think it's like very, very driven by technology. The first films were like Nickelodeons you would see in like Carney, like you would put like a nickel in you can either go to the nudie booth, you could see a sexy burlesque dancer. You can put the same quarter and see some kind of mongoloid freak, and the curtain would open and you would see like a two-headed freak. Or you would put a quarter in and you would just see like a ball bounce over some index cards. And that was the first movie. And then they started making movie theaters, which sort of replaced Shakespearean tradition of plays, which then, iterations thereof. And, once you're able to download things, put them on USB drives and pirate things, it's now everyone's just stealing everyone's content on the torrent network and this and that. And what does cost, $1 million to get a bunch of actors together, feed them 3 meals a day, the camera guys, the director, everybody, for 2 months to actually film something good, now it can just be stolen online with a couple clicks. So it is a really scary time. And, essential worker, who knew that the plumbers and electricians would inherit the earth because everyone's a YouTuber, now they can charge $1 million a second, so nobody has those skills anymore.
Yeah, man. Well, let's talk a little bit about your journey, starting with your college days. You went to New Orleans University. I grew up in Louisiana. I'd be interested to hear a little bit about what your experience there was like.
Yeah, so I went to Eugene Lang. So I went to Temple for my freshman year of undergrad. Then I transferred to Eugene Lang College. I got my degree in creative writing while I was performing with the Upright Citizens Brigade all the time. Then I moved to LA and I worked on reality shows for 5 years. I got fired from a reality show. I was totally lost. And so I applied to the University of New Orleans because they have a really good MFA in screenwriting track. So I thought, well, if I, while this shape-shifting chimera, gestates into a new beautiful butterfly, I'm going to incubate myself for 3 years in college. And, so I went to the University of New Orleans and I was just basically doing stand-up with Black people every night while I was getting student loans. So, that was a fun time. But yeah, a lot of that's in my book. I had a roommate from Dubai called Mohammed, and I watched him go from a little sheltered Arab boy who would only speak Arabic with our guy Amir, our other roommate Amir. He would come over but my Mohammed learned English by watching all 7 American Pie movies. I didn't even know there were 7 American Pie movies. So like when he kind of came out of his shell, he was like, his whole personality was like, Eric, you don't understand. We're all going to get laid, So that was like, so I was very enthralled by his boyish exuberance. And he always had piles of cash from the Dubai government. So I was always, he was always chasing girls around and getting into amusing scrapes. So the middle part of the book is all about him. It's really funny.
What was it like for you when you first started Upright Citizens Brigade and then eventually started working on TV shows? How did you get your foot in the door there?
Yeah, so interesting story. So the New School had a really good intern program. So I was through the New School, I was an intern at Comedy Central. Then I spent a summer at this documentary house called American Montage. So all the time, every summer, I interned for a production company, something like this. And then also the other attack vector was I was taking Upright Citizens Brigade class, and a lot of MTV producers were in Upright Citizens Brigade class to because MTV was paying for them to go and learn this other skill. And so I met this group, this MTV promo producer who's still my friend, and we started like a little film collective. And then I was, every now and then he hired me as an actor. I was on this thing called with One Republic, the band called One Republic. They had this whole documentary kind of style, and I was just hired as an actor for it, to promote that band on like little promotional spots. And so when I moved to Los Angeles in February 2009, I started working on Shark Tank and Amazing Race. And just because my resume, I just blasted it everywhere. And then I kind of had a 5-year career working on reality shows. But it, you know, because also I was I worked on 50 Cent, the Money and the Power, Making the Band with Puff Daddy, no baby oil, and then also Guido Beach, which turned into the Jersey Shore. So I worked on 3 things in New York in the summer and my last my senior year at the new school. So I had a good amount of production experience. So when I moved to LA, I kind of hit the ground running. But you know, you're working on a reality show, and then they're like, okay, you know, I was working on a show called If I Can Dream. I started in October 2010. They said, okay, we're going to go till October 2011. And then March 2011, they're like, everyone's fired immediately. And so it was always like, wait a minute, what? We didn't get 2 weeks notice. So you're always like working on a show. It gets greenlit. There's a new, you know, that whole company is bought, or their contract, someone else comes into TBS and they erase all the previous producers' projects. And, you know, like what, it was always just like, what? So yeah, it was very difficult to sustain, you know, and people don't understand that when you're a production company, it's like 2 producers and a secretary that will rent an office in New York City or Los Angeles. There's 3 full-time employees. They'll go around to all the networks pitching a TV show. When you greenlight a TV show, they'll hire 60, 70 people. So it was always in that ballooning of hiring that you try to throw your resume in and get in. So I was able to like get these 4-month-long gigs working on different TV shows. But then when the season would wrap, you're out on your butt again. So you're trying to find these shows that are being greenlit. And my friend that I worked on Shark Tank season 1 with, he's been 3 months on, 3 months off, 3 months on, 3 months off, ever since 2012 when I worked on season 1. But season 2 didn't shoot until 18 months later. So I can't wait around for a phone call for 18 months. So I was on something else when season 2 came around. So, you know, a lot of it's luck, a lot of it's who you know. And, you know, I was telling Charlie Robinson on Macroaggressions that, you know, the show Wings was like a 3-person production company. Mm-hmm. They sell wings to CBS. They have a great 5-year run. They're high on their hog. They don't work again for 12 years until they put money together for the movie Sideways, which was a hugely successful movie. But they were like, we can't make the rent on our little office production company unless we sell another show. So they got desperate. They raised money and they put that together, and it was successful for them. But that's like a rare. That's a success story. You know, a lot of times people make one movie and never again. So
you obviously have deeper levels of understanding of the corruption and conspiracy in our realm. And as you know, as your journey goes along, there's more and more layers to peel through, deeper understandings, more corruption. How did your journey of awareness go? When did you start to become aware of just how fucked everything was?
Well, my dad was almost killed in 9/11. He was working at a company called WorldCo, a dystopian. I think even the kids in the hall, that comedy show, the evil corporation was like WorldCorp. Yeah. But WorldCo was a stock trading financial hedge fund type of thing. And they didn't have a human resources guy. So my dad came in, he made an employee handbook, he worked for them, and then 9/11 happened, and they almost killed him. And I bought the original, thing, hook, line, and sinker. And, it's very traumatic. I didn't know if he was alive or dead for 24 hours because the phones all went dead. At the basement of the Twin Towers was like a big communication hub where all like the literal lines of telephones connect in the basement of the Trade Center. So phones didn't work for 24 hours. And finally he called us from a payphone next to a hotel without electricity or running water that he was staying in, that he paid cash for. And and then I'm like, oh, he's alive. And then I'll never forget, I was in my dorm at Temple University, and I saw Dr. Stephen Jones on Google Video do a presentation on the collapse of Building 7, and it was terrifying. The implications that Dr. Stephen Jones was saying, because he's like, no, we found military grade thermate in the dust, and it's even like a known explosive that would blow up a tower. Like if you were like a construction company, a demo company, what you would get off the shelf. Dr. Jones is like, we tested this. This is 3 times more reactive than known nanothermite. And he's like, I exploded it in a calorimeter. I'm actually doing the test. Yeah. And I just had these waves of like, what the actual fuck? So America killed Americans to go kill other people in other countries. And they forced me to read what was that, Catch-22? They forced me to read George Orwell in high school to push it in my face of, hey, dummy, we're going to do this to you. And if you let us, it's good karma for us. Yeah. So there was a lot of movies also that woke me up, like the movie Sicko by Michael Moore, about how the less healthcare insurance companies give you, the more profits they make on Wall Street. So if you buy stock in Aetna, which is an insurance company, then you'll get profits when they give less healthcare to their customers. The film Death in Gaza, I saw in Eugene Lang College, where this guy James Miller visits the Israelis, visits the Palestinians, and it was pretty clear that there was an apartheid genocide going on. And so when the latest genocide happened recently between Israel and Palestine, you cannot fool me. The Fog of War, where Robert McNamara, a 2003 documentary, The Fog of War, Robert McNamara admits on camera that he made up the Gulf of Tonkin. It was all fake. They also go in that movie how the Rand Corporation would hyper focus on like one thing that the Vietnamese would do to retaliate. So France was in there. The Rothschilds ordered French soldiers to go beat up the stupid Vietnamese because they weren't making enough profits on their business interests there. But, French people are a bunch of pussies, and, one of them got a hangnail, and so then another one got malaria, so they all quit and they left there. And so the Illuminati sent in America. They drafted Americans in there to go beat up the Vietnamese, and the way they got the impetus to do this is the Rand Corporation would go through all the provocations of all the different soldiers going in there to secure their business interests. And then anytime the Vietnamese would retaliate in self-defense, they would clutch their pearls and go, oh, well, they killed an American. They threw a rock at an American, when they have AK-47s and rocket launchers and all this stuff. So they would get PR agents to go through all of the provocations with never asking the question, why in the fuck are the Americans there? Why in the fuck are the French there? Yeah. if the Vietnam is filled with Vietnamese, nobody's asking questions. Why are the Americans there? Well, they're shooting people and beating up people to secure the business interests of the Rothschild family. So when October 7th happens, and it was a Bibi Netanyahu directed false flag, so then he can clutch his pearls so that he can commit a genocide. Just watch the movie Death in Gaza. It's pretty clear. They use the same PR firm to. This is also how narcissism works. Chris, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, but have you ever had a friend where you do a lot of things for this friend and then they do a little thing for you, and then they're so dramatic over the one thing? It could be a romantic partner. You take this romantic partner out to dinner 20 times, and then like the one time they drive you somewhere, they're like, well, I drove you to that thing, and it's like, I don't want to go tit for tat here, but it's not even close to balance in this, And so just like any narcissist, the aggrievements against them in a war situation, they hype up and they pitch to the American people with all the greatest psychiatrists in the world to do propaganda, war propaganda, to get the fake thing. I didn't know in 2005 when I watched Dr. Stephen Jones explain 9/11, the lengths that they would go to. They would kill 2,700 Americans and pitch it to on Osama bin Laden when he was a CIA asset, best friends with Donald Rumsfeld. I didn't know they would go that far. And then I met, and so then I got obsessed with this topic. So then I read Kathy O'Brien's book, Transformation of America. I read it in 2006. After that, I read William Schneblin's book, Masonry Behind the Light. Then I became obsessed with Bill Cooper, and I read Behold a Pale Horse. And then I listened to Mystery Babylon and The Hour of the Time when I found out that he exposed 9/11 back the day after it happened. So I became obsessed with Bill Cooper because that guy's onto something. So then I went back on the Internet Archives, and he had a radio show that's all archived there. Thank God he had some good people around him, that the early adopters of the Internet, that put Mystery Babylon and The Hour of the Time out there. And then, when I rise to this vibration, I meet Brett Smith, who made this documentary Hypothesis about Dr. Stephen Jones getting fired from BYU. I put that on Facebook recently, but I know Brett Smith personally. He was in Utah, a freshman film student, and the community college next to BYU. And he starts making this thing right as Dr. Stephen Jones is getting fired for putting particles in an electron microscope and then coming to conclusions that are obvious, that only now it's safe to 20 years after everyone in 9/11 is dead, then they're like, okay, yeah, we did do that, whatever. They're always rolling around. Well, okay, you caught us. No, we caught you back then, and we had trials, but the judicial system is run by the Rothschild family. So, when you raise to this vibration, I met Sam Tripoli back in 2013, basically because he was comedian Rick Shapiro's recovery sponsor. And so I kind of always saw what Sam Tripoli was up to. And I think he was, a big look at me, dumb, like I was, trying to fill a hole in his soul with getting adulation from comedy. But when he stumbled onto the same things I'm talking about, 9/11 and this and that, then it's like, okay, this is too important not to try to make this topic digestible. Because, in 2005, I was traveling on a bus 2.5 hours to New York City to train improv. And there were some bus rides after I learned about 9/11 where I was like crying because I'm like, nothing, what the fuck is the point of this? We have to go kill Larry Silverstein. We have to go kill these. There's no point to comedy to pacify the laziness of the sheeple if we're not doing a call to action. That they're killing us to kill more people to steal their oil. And we're just their beast of burden,
How did you navigate Hollywood and the entertainment business while becoming aware of some of this stuff. I heard you tell the story on macroaggressions. I don't remember the producer's name that had little 12-year-old boys as ornaments in the pool, but hearing things like that, how often did that come out and you hear things like that, and how did you navigate?
So I was working on If I Can Dream, which is in the penthouse of 9000 Sunset 19 Entertainment. And the head producer there said he heard that Bryan Singer directed X-Men. Look at Bryan Singer's IMDb. He directed X-Men. You know, X-Men is like, you can make a super person if you just traumatize them enough, you know. Let's have a diddle kid party. Yeah, and it was a crazy production there, and I was so sleep deprived that I was like, what? It didn't make sense. So I just said, so he said, yeah, I heard about Bryan Singer's party. You know, he had little 12-year-old naked boys for an ornament. Anyway, let's work on this scene. And so then I said, so, you know, the cops are going to go in and SWAT the house and shoot all the kitty fiddlers. And he was like, I don't think that's how it works. And then we kept working. And then my next paycheck was like 3 paychecks.
Damn.
But I'm such an honest little Catholic boy that I thought it would be exposed. So I should have just shut the fuck up and kept getting those checks, because that production was supposed to last a year and it only lasted a couple more months. And boy, I could have really used that money to hold myself off for the next show that I was working on, because it was probably a couple months when I was out on my ass from that show that I could get on another TV show to work on, right? So I was really only making like paycheck to paycheck wages, and that would have really helped me. But I was like, you know, I think there's been a mistake, and I didn't want to like owe money like Milli Vanilli later, where they're like, oh, we accidentally overpaid you, you know? So I didn't want to like them to sue me for, but I think they were really like testing me. Like, will he keep a secret? Will he shut up? Like, will we, but I didn't want them to put me in a situation where then I was over my skis and I owed them, you know what I mean? So, I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh, there's been a mistake. And then they had me like, at first they were like, okay, we'll go to the ATM and give us the cash back. And I was like, no, I'll give you a check minus taxes back. So there was just kind of, it was a little shady. Yeah, man.
Did you experience anything else that would indicate that there was some extremely debaucherous, messed up, pedophilic stuff going on around you?
No, I just kind of noticed that like it wasn't a meritocracy. I always thought that comedy was a skill to be learned, not a club to join. And the more I kind of got through comedy, the more I realized like it was more of a club to be joined. It was more of a who you know type of thing, because you would go out to, you know, open mics and this and that, and people were like hilarious, but then they would be overrun because so-and-so knows so-and-so, or, and then, you know, yeah, it was just kind of like to be one of the 3 people in the production office to go around to pitch to the networks. If you had some occult degrees, if you were in some kind of secret societies, it's pretty obvious that your pitches would go through more. I mean, look at Stephen Colbert, 33rd degree Mason. Look at, and this kills me to say it, but it's just true. Conan O'Brien is a Freemason. It's just what he is. These are just facts. So when you see these kind of, and Stephen Colbert sucks. I mean, he's terrible. And, you know, he's best friends with the Podesta family, but he's the funniest person. But like, I met so many people in the Upright Citizens Brigade who had this who were just so fucking funny, and they never climbed the ladder. There was like a ceiling for them, and
Do you think it's most likely
yeah.
true that in order to get to some of those levels, you have to be compromised in a pretty major way?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think there is obviously a club, and as you know, if you're an emperor with a lot of cash, and then there is a disturbance, there is a disruption to your industry. So let's say everyone, instead of paying Comcast $110 a month for your cable bill, that's too expensive. Everyone cuts their cable cord so that they can afford a $30 a month internet bill, and then $20 a month Hulu or Netflix or Paramount Plus or ESPN Plus deal. Now you see Paramount, the parent company of Comedy Central, MTV, they're all pulling their boats in, and now Paramount Plus is the new Comedy Central and MTV. And MTV acquired Vice magazine. They all went down like the Titanic. Like it is, there are these dynasties that are just being crashing against icebergs. And you see the little boys network emerge, where Paramount Plus is pulling their boats in as they they acquired the UFC, and they're pulling their boats in to save themselves from the chaos of the changing media landscape. So
it is very interesting to see how everything is unfolding right now, especially after COVID. It would appear from an outsider looking in that Hollywood is in a slow death state, but could it be that it's just transitioning into digital algorithmic beast that is going to still be there and still gatekeep in certain ways, but it's going to use AI and algorithms, and it's going to eventually creep in to some of these other platforms that are allowing the independent content creators to do some of this right now? But do you see it that way, that it's just a transition, or is it really crumbling in doing a death roll?
Yeah, I have a family member who works in advertising, and they're really good at, counting how many clicks someone clicked on an advertisement versus their buy rate versus, so there is this like algorithmic thinking that the useless eaters are just click and consumer monkeys, but when it comes to art, I just remember seeing The Shawshank Redemption on VHS when I was 15 years old. I knew nothing of The Shawshank Redemption. I saw that movie from start to finish, and it absolutely blew me away. And there's no algorithm, there's no spreadsheet, for original art, you can't just use a large language model with AI actors to recreate that magic. So I think that there's a real naivety to the people like Klaus Schwab and the digital the people constructing a digital prison for us, because they're not funny, they don't have love in their heart, they're not creative, they're not artists, they just see humans as eating, shitting, consuming monkeys that they're the lords over. And their naivety is just fascinating it just can't work. They're algorithmic. It might work in buy rates of this or that, but when it comes to like good movies and good content, it will never work. But they're trying. So
Well, let's talk a little bit about your book, Girls in the Demon's Deal. What brought you to write this?
Well, I think a lot of frustration out there of trying to be an artist, like we've been talking about. The original thing, and I told Charlie Robinson this, but I always get, it was Colin Farrell. So I'm at the new school and they put in a tape of like how to be an actor. And Colin Farrell is there and he goes, I was like working in a sewer and then I did like 4 movies and then like I was in like Gladiator. And it's like, what? That's how to be an actor. To be you're just the dumbest person in the world and someone hands you the keys to the kingdom and that's how you be an actor. Like it was so asinine and you like the scientifically worst advice possible. Yeah, I'm gonna go in a sewer and then be an actor, be in 5 movies. What the hell are you talking about? And so I always hated people that were like, well, I never wanted to be an actor. I never wanted to be a comedian. Everyone just pushed me into it. So this humble brag, douchebag, fuckboy nonsense of like, well, I was just so good that people pushed me into it. No, I wanted to be it because it was the only thing I was fucking good at. So I pursued it. I pursued this relentlessly, despite, stepping on landmines. And I think it's a more, and putting effort into things, I don't think is lame. I think it's a very spiritual path. And so I tried to write a book where it's like, okay, and a lot of kids, every year they send more kids to Juilliard to learn how to be actors. They send kids to UNO to be screenwriters. Maybe I'm the best screenwriter in the world, but if no one may know if I never get tapped on the shoulder while I'm working in a sewer. So, I just wanted to put out a relentlessly honest view of what it takes. And so it was kind of my response to the worst advice I've ever been given.
Right. You worked with Brandon Thomas to publish his book, our good friend.
Yeah, he was kind of a joy. Our personalities are very different. He is a relentless optimist, and I am a grumpy bumpkin. And so I originally, submitted like 51 chapters, and then we edited them, and we got through the process, and we got the cover art done, and so then I started like recording the 51 chapters for the audiobook, and I get a call and he goes, oh, we gotta cut all these chapters. And I was like, what? And the project almost completely fell apart because I didn't want to, it felt like he was like cutting my baby in half. Like I birthed this baby out of my creativity womb. And then his wife got on the phone and she's like, well, you have all these chapters about your personal life, and then all these chapters are like essays about show business. It's like 2 books. And then I was like, let me call you tomorrow. And I slept on it. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I have a chapter called The Rise and Fall of the UCB Theater that ended up on the cutting room floor. Another chapter called Banned from Hi-Ho when I was working in, I was a comedian in New Orleans, and there was a club called the Hi-Ho that banned me. So there was kind of like, they're like, this is more of a book that's like scorched earth. Like Eric's like revenge, naming names of all the petty losers. And it kind of takes away from the heartfulness of Girls on the Demon's Deal. So this is like more, it's like a really like sentimental and heartful memoir. And me sort of getting revenge in my sort of petty battles with cokehead losers was taking away from the heart of the memoir. So they were like, let's get them to like you in this book, and then you can use that social capital to go scorch earth in the second book.
So you will be working on a second book to put that other information in.
I think so. I think that's the plan as of now. I mean, I just finished, not only did I, record the audiobook, but then, sometimes I burp or fart or misread something. So I had to go back and trim it down really precisely. And then we have a guy who's putting a musical score to it called Tom Starkweather. And so he's about halfway through putting a music score to it. So the audiobook is going to be like really epic. So I'm really happy with that, how that asset's coming along. But when that's done, I'm going to take a nice break, and but I'm slowly kind of reformatting the second book and having a look. And it's very difficult. Like, if people have read this one, then it's like maybe I can start in the middle. So I'm still trying to work with, and some of them are just essays. Like I talk about Louis C.K.'s Pig Newton.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, maybe you could give us a little preview snippets of some of the scorched earth that you're going to be unleashing.
Well, let's start with just let's talk about show business, because I really was, I think a lot of people look at Louis C.K. as a mentor for a lot of comedians because he's so successful. And what he would do is he would put one special on HBO, then the next special, he would use that money, hire the same crew, and put another comedy special on his own website, charge $5. Then his next one would be HBO again. Then the next one would be Comedy Central. Then the next one would be his own website. Then the next one would be Hulu. Then the next one would be his own website. And he pumped the mainstream audience inward to louisck.com, $5 per download. And then from 20 years ago, he asked two lovely ladies if he could masturbate in front of them. And they said yes. And then he did. And now every mainstream article is sex offender Louis C.K. because they can't fucking control him. So when you read a mainstream article, disgraced sex offender, hey, ma'am, can I masturbate in front of you? Yes, you can. He was not on Epstein's fucking island, dude. Yeah. Okay? Sex offender Louis C.K., right? Jeez. So when you go, oh, well, wow. Like, they can't control this guy. He's not making money for them anymore, and sending it back to whatever country they have dual citizenship. Who knows? But you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they looking at things like that, I think, are really useful to get a real good eye. But then there's also like way, way, way pettier things where, people coming off drugs are doing stand-up comedy. And then, there's like, people let's say there's 30 people on the list, and a drug addict does like 45 minutes because they don't give a shit that there's 40 people waiting to do 3 minutes because narcissism. So there's a lot of things like that I saw where I will name names and go like, I don't care if this person is hit by a bus. Like I'm very serious about that. Like when you think that your soul, whenever there's a flight log, it'll say 60 souls on this plane because they know those are live human. So when you're on a list, a stand-up lineup, and there's 60 souls on the list, and you are better than all those people, and you don't give a fuck about them, I don't know. I think you should die in a car crash or something like that. So I talk about this. And I got names, dates, everything.
That's great.
And Brandon's like, man, this makes you look a little petty. I was like, hell yeah, I am. You have no idea. You have no idea. Doing this for 20 years and seeing what I've seen. You have no idea. Yeah. Because it's like, can we all play? Like, can we have honor amongst thieves?
I always enjoy hearing perspectives about the nature of reality, where you're at on your spiritual path, if at all. Many people since 2020 have been trying to figure out the nature of reality. A lot of people before that, but there was a major shift where people started questioning a lot of shit after 2020. Once you get past the surface level corruption and conspiracy, and you start to get to some of the deeper levels that are extremely strange and enter the occult and metaphysics and satanic rituals, that's when it gets difficult for people. Many people seem to be falling into this kind of Gnostic understanding that we're in a prison planet and there's nothing to look forward to because the afterlife is just a meeting with archons that pose as your grandmother and then send you right back to be recycled and do it all over again. To me, that's a very dark, bleak perspective about what the hell we're doing here. But what do you think?
Oh, just the meaning of life. That's an easy question. I think there's a lot of tyranny. Tyranny needs compliance, and you know, do you know what kind of magical powers you have to be for your face to be printed on something that says 20 pounds? And then you work an hour slaving away for a picture of the Queen or the King of England. Like that, you have to have a lot of occult hoo-ha so that a printed on a piece of freaking napkin is worth your weight in labor. And so everything is this sort of compliance ritual, and tyranny needs compliance. And there's a word called statecraft, like witchcraft. Statecraft is the dance of coercing tyrannical compliance from a population. But I sort of remember when Princess Diana died. My mother was weeping, and it was 1997, and I was 12 years old, and I was kind of like, you've never met this lady, but I think everyone in America was really appreciative of Princess Diana because she was the first behind the castle person who had a semblance of a soul. And I think it's pretty obvious that her husband, King Charles, murdered her because she did a BBC interview where she said, my marriage was a bit crowded with Camilla around. And then she started dating this Muslim man, Mr. Fayette, and then she was murdered. And I think it's obvious. And the statecraft of keeping the monarchy intact as the most entitled, retarded people possible, where the word entitlement is your name, is you're born into a position of higher authority than anyone else when you've not worked ever at anything. And so when they get away with it, and then the British people are so brainwashed and enamored by their position in society that they don't go behead the King Charles or Prince Charles at the time. But what did happen was it kind of fractured the public trust. And then later on, I think the public was a little quicker to go after Prince Andrew when he was associated with Jeffrey Epstein. He's been officially kicked out of the castle. He's been officially kicked out because he can't rule over them and make the state taxpayers pay with his mom's face on them slave tokens to have him go to Epstein's Island. It was a little bit too much. I mean, King Charles had coerced the population to have him be best friends with Jimmy Savile, the second most the prolific pedophile in the world. But that family, they tend to know all of the most prolific people in the world. So, what am I saying? I'm saying at least we kicked one out. So you see that the population does have the power to eject royals when enough of this common sense outrage has bubbled up. So I think that there's always this good and evil sort of dance out there. And I think if enough public outcry goes to the 9/11 issue, goes to the genocide of the Palestinian people issue, goes to the COVID scamdemic, goes to, this or that thought experience, then the sleight of hand of statecraft, the power goes away when the methods are revealed. So that's why I think it's more of a holy journey to go after these perpetrators, because their magic requires a dumb compliant population, which I refuse to be.
They rely on theater so heavily. I question everything that is on the television, that's seen on social media, because you have to. There is so much deception in everything. They are trying to portray that your average person is so divided, that the left hates the right so much that we're on the verge of civil war, that there's mass psychosis spreading through the younger generations, that anyone could be a school shooter at any minute, just chaos, horror, fear everywhere. But when I go out and I talk to my neighbor or go out on the night on the town and meet new people, I don't meet these crazy fuckers that they're talking about on the television. I don't know where they are. I may see one or two blue-haired people walking on the side of the street, but they're not in my reality. They never will be. What is your perspective of the way things really are versus the way they're being portrayed, as in, is society on the verge of collapse, or are things in the real world pretty fucking normal still? The theater is just what they're trying to get us to believe in so that we can manifest the chaos.
Well, let's put it from the other perspective. What if you perpetrated COVID? What if you perpetrated 9/11 and you're an active participant who's in the club to cover it up? I think what they do is they want to pump up a issue that they have control over, to put this righteous anger towards the state craftians, towards an issue that's irrelevant, to shoot that anger away from the perpetrators. I think that's really their whole game. And just like I used to think that theater was a meritocracy of the best screenwriter gets put in position and this and to but I think that the zeitgeist is what the state craftians are so focused on, because the zeitgeist, they want to herd humanity into a dead end to always keep in power. So, I didn't know when I got my degree in screenwriting that if I'm not, if I don't take a benefactor like a Peter Thiel and write his bullshit for him to make him look like a god king, that I would have, or his philosophy to be out there, that you have no chance. So, I think that's kind of, I think they are trying to put a lid on this, on the zeitgeist that humanity is in the righteous anger of the huddled masses. That's why they put out all this division content on the nightly news. I think that's why. So when you know that's why, then you are immune from falling victim of their traps.
Do you have hope for the future? And what advice would you give somebody that wants to attempt to get their foot in the door in entertainment, whether it be comedy or screenwriting or anything like that? What would you tell them about navigating?
Yeah, it looks bleak, like when you doom scroll through social media, you see people slapping each other unconscious. They have, it's like, well, maybe I can get famous if I stand with my arms behind my back and I let another human being slap me as hard as possible until I get concussed. That'll really make mommy proud. I hear the next season of slap fighting, the contestants will poo in a mold of a brick, and then they'll put in their freezer overnight and they'll hit each other with bricks of their own shit, because that will really showcase a contempt for humanity, which I think is what the point of that is. But do I have hope? Yes, because I think the more people see the tricks of the puppet master, I think we have more of a chance. I think we can speed up. Look, they killed JFK in 1963 or whatever, and only, now they're like, okay, we did it. Finally, we get RFK in there, and they're like, okay, yeah, maybe the CIA was involved, whatever. Well, now even Tucker Carlson, he was shitting on Dr. Stephen Jones for his research about 9/11. Now, Tucker Carlson just made a 5-part series about how 9/11 was an inside job. So instead of 100 years, now he shrunk his awakening down to about 20 years. So now what I said about the tactics that the Rand Corporation used in Vietnam, now even Piers Morgan, who is a completely shill journalist of the empire, he's even pushing back against Israel committing a genocide in Gaza. And they're calling him an anti-Semite because their statecraft doesn't work anymore. So I think in the age of the internet, as our attention span collapses, so does our tolerance for tyranny. And I think that's kind of we're kind of, the population is building a herd immunity to tyranny, and I see that as a really positive thing. I think we're not putting up with it. We're not waiting. We're not going to wait 100 years until everyone's dead to reveal what happened with COVID. I don't think that's possible anymore.
Well, you mentioned earlier you're going to take a little break and you'll eventually be working on the second book. Anything else upcoming for you?
Well, I don't know when this is coming
Today.
out, but Thursday. Oh, great. Thursday, I will be in Houston, Texas at the Secret Group doing a comedy show called Thursday Laughs. So if you're in Houston area, you can see me Thursday, 8 p.m. at the Secret Group in Houston, Texas, doing a little stand-up comedy. But yeah, I got a podcast called Highway Diary. I have a lot of content on erichollerbach.com. You can always see where I'll be at erichollerbach.com. And I implore you to get Girls and the Demons deal if you want to know how to navigate your own demons while trying to keep your soul in this horror show known as the United States Bankrupt Corporation.
Excellent, man. I'll have all those links easily accessible for everyone. Eric, thank you so much. Love to talk again in the future. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again tomorrow.
Thanks.
Hello, friends. I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description. Are you and your family prepared for an emergency? Maybe the fake alien invasion? Now is the time to prepare yourself and your family for any event. Check out Prep Starts Now. Their mission is to provide high-quality preparedness products that empower individuals and families to be ready for any situation. They're committed to delivering reliable, trusted gear to ensure your safety, security, and peace of mind in times of need. Their product selection is carefully curated to provide you with the essential gear you need to stay prepared. From emergency kits to tactical tools, every item is chosen for its reliability and practicality. Prep Starts Now understands the importance of family, and their goal is to equip you with everything you need to build a solid plan for your family's preparedness. In today's ever-changing world, being prepared is more important than ever, and Prep Starts Now is here to help you and your family stay ready with quality products and practical guidance. Use the link in the description and get 15% off your order. If you're looking to start your therapeutic microdosing journey, but don't know where to start, especially when looking for the highest quality ingredients, including nootropics, and what you'd expect from a true microdose capsule, check out our friends at Brainsupreme. They offer the absolute highest quality ingredients so you can start your microdosing journey knowing that you're getting top-notch ingredients. To find out more, visit their website using that link right in the description, and you can get 15% off your entire order.